What's up, UB fam? My name is Martin Russell Johnson. I'm the creator and host of Uniquely Black, the podcast. I came up with the idea for this podcast in the midst of the George Floyd protests. When I saw just how deeply rooted the discrimination and hatred was towards the Black community, the only way I knew how to respond to the disappointment and pain was through my art. I wanted to get three things out of this podcast. First, I wanted the podcast to become a vessel that encouraged our nation to reevaluate their opinions about race in a country that has a vested interest in controlling the narratives that define us. Second, I wanted these conversations to challenge harmful stereotypes while showing the world just how unique the Black community could be. And finally, I wanted this podcast to give my community hope and provide them with the tools to overcome the adversity that has crippled so many futures. This season, you'll hear me speak with exceptionally talented Black professionals like Larry F. Houston, an artist that has worked on cartoons such as X-Men, the animated series, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Most people didn't know I was a Black director or storyboard artist at all. It wasn't until I retired back in 2015 that I was able to get out there and go to conventions, and then people saw me.
Jami Rambaran, an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker who also happens to be an associate professor at Howard University and also serves as the assistant chair of her department.
To see this young Black girl direct over 50 people in a music video was just incredible, because we didn't see a lot of female directors, especially in the music video space.
And Marcus Henderson, an actor and producer that you've seen in movies such as Insidious and Get Out and shows like Snowfall.
Process with Get Out, when I read it and I got through it, I thought to myself, there's no way they're making this movie. This is not real. I'm being pranked. What made me fall in love with it was the honesty of this movie, like the honesty within the fantastical elements.
The first episode with Larry F. Houston will drop on Monday, June 17th, so make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date. I'm going to use the rest of this intro episode to tell you about who I am. We're going to start off with the story. The year is 1994. I'm 8 years old, standing on the corner in a neighborhood I've never seen before. My loving mother is with me, along with a man I hated to call Dad. Although they were in the middle of a conversation that I didn't understand, I was happy that no one was getting hurt this time. This was the last time I'd ever see my father until I picked up his ashes 29 years later. I had no idea just how significant that moment would become, how that abandonment would create a lifetime of anger, anxiety, self-sabotage, and trust issues. Issues I never even knew I had, issues that would prevent me from becoming the best version of myself as I transitioned into adulthood. A father, I'm told, is supposed to be someone that guides you. They're providers and protectors that can teach you how to regulate and manage your emotions. However, as of today, an estimated 67% of Black children in the United States under the age of 18 live in a fatherless home. The late rapper Tupac Shakur said it best, but I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline. I'd have more confidence. Black kids like myself who experienced abandonment due to no fault of their own, I might add, are more likely to end up in poverty, drop out of school, end up in prison, become addicted to drugs, and develop lasting physical and mental health disorders as they grow older. Back in 2009, President Barack Obama gave a monumental speech on the eve of Father's Day to discuss the vital role that fatherhood plays in the lives of young men and women. The statistics that were shared were astonishing. Growing up in a fatherless home, you are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. For my community, the fatherless home crisis is an epidemic. For nearly 20 years, I hated my father. Hated that he left my mom to work 7 days a week to support the family. I blamed him for the hotels and single-bedroom apartments that I would grow up in. Had he provided my mom with any type of child support, maybe I wouldn't have been so ashamed and embarrassed by the poverty and sadness I was hiding behind my smile. When I turned 12, there was this overwhelming feeling of anger that I didn't know how to control. Hitting puberty as a young black kid meant you were no longer the cute and athletic kid in a neighborhood. You were now viewed as an aggressor, like Jordan Neely, who was murdered on a subway in New York because passengers viewed his blackness as a threat. Living as a black man in America means you're now a target for the police, like the countless black men slain by authorities without being given a proper trial. For black men and women in America, the police decide our fate, and then it feels like half of our nation justifies our murders without knowing the full story, as if innocent until proven guilty doesn't apply to black skin. That overwhelming feeling of anger that I mentioned before, it began to grow inside of me. I was in a fight almost every week because of it. The more I fought, the more I forgot about the sadness in my life. I found myself on the brink of joining a gang because I knew that it would give me the validation, structure, brotherhood, and protection that I needed. I was just one yes away from walking down that path that would inevitably turn me into just another statistic, the same path that a lot of my friends were already on. I remember judging my friends in gangs growing up, but the question soon dawned on me. What if I was just prolonging the inevitable? What if I was just more stubborn than they were, and joining a gang was supposed to be my future? Maybe that's why everyone always said I wasn't black enough. I told myself that it was time to stop fighting the stereotype and accept who I was destined to become, who the media, television, and movies told me I was. I'll show them all just how black I could be. Everyone who called me whitewashed, I'll show them. Just watch. The gang leader, a young and aggressive black kid I'd known for a few years, asked me, "Hey, you ready to join the set or what?" It was now or never. But something stopped me. I rebelled against myself, mostly out of fear. I thought about all the people I'd be letting down, about the pain I'd put my single mother through, the same woman who worked 2 jobs, 7 days a week, just to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. I thought about the life I had before I was 12, where I hung out in middle-class neighborhoods that didn't see a lot of violence, where I could skate and ride my bike freely without thinking about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. In those middle-class neighborhoods, the kids I knew weren't dealing with as much trauma and adversity. Most of them had both parents in their lives and weren't worried about eviction notices or where their next meal was going to come from. I felt like there was an entire life of happiness that I was exposed to before I started spending time in the hood. There was hope for me to build a future outside of poverty because I'd seen it before. Back to the gang leader and I didn't give him an answer that day. He asked me if I was ready. In fact, I went on knowing him for another 5 years until we graduated high school. Although there'd be moments of tension between he and I throughout the years, he never pushed me to give him an answer. Yeah, I could fight and stand my ground if I needed to, but he knew I wasn't about that life. Exposure to a world outside of the low socioeconomic struggle is what saved me from making a choice that I knew wasn't for me. The other thing that saved me was something that my community so desperately needed and still needs today. It's why I created this very podcast, because mentors and role models play an essential role in creating the foundation that Black youth need to overcome those harsh statistics President Obama shared. Mentors help increase academic competence and self-esteem, and each Black child that is connected with a positive role model is given the chance to reimagine and reshape their lives for the better, regardless of the hardships they've faced. With mentors by your side, you get to connect with someone who can share their experiences with you, show you the ropes to success, and provide you with validation and structure. Problem is, some Black communities don't have access to positive role models or mentors to educate them and show them how to disrupt the cycles of generational poverty that plague them. But that's all going to change. With Uniquely Black the podcast, I plan to disrupt the systemic oppression my community faces by giving them direct access to powerful Black women and men who have defied expectations and shattered stereotypes. This podcast will engage each guest, such as actors, educators, politicians, scientists, and inspirational Black leaders, in an honest conversation about their journey to provide my community with the blueprint needed to overcome barriers and achieve beyond their perceived limitations. The conversation will be broken up into 5 sections. Section 1 is called Uniquely You. The goal of this section is to introduce you to each guest and the circumstances that made them unique. Section 2 is called Mental Health and A-Scores. This is where we discuss mental health and traumatic experiences in the Black community and share how you might be able to use your A-score to overcome obstacles and discover your true potential. Section 3, Mentorship and Career Trajectory, is where we hear more about the professional journeys of our guests and become inspired to set up our own paths to success. Section 4 is called Blackness Defined. This is where we hear their unique perspectives about what it means to be Black in America, while we shatter stereotypes and misconceptions about who we are. Section 5, the final section, is called the Virtual Black Time Capsule. Like a true time capsule, our guests will share their music, literature, and entertainment recommendations and talk about how we may be able to better ourselves through art. While you listen to the interviews, I'll be jumping in from time to time to share my thoughts about each guest and comment on the extraordinary it factors that make them unique. UB fam, I'm excited to have you on this journey with me. Welcome to Uniquely Black, the podcast.